APEC meeting of, what's the date? 19th of November. Any apologies? It's my fault. I've had no declarations of interest expressed to me prior. Any now? Thank you. No public forum petitions or deputations. No notice of notification of extraordinary or urgent business. And no questions. We have no chairman or councillors' reports as far as I'm aware. So we will move straight into item 8. The draft annual report and summary. And welcome Tania and team. Take it away.
So just Chair, just wondering if for the plan for today is that Tania and Gail and Anna will walk us through the report. The preference is that we keep the conversation to items of substance, and if councillors have picked up any typos or small irregularities, if that could be sent through to Gail outside of the meeting, so that we focus this meeting on those important conversations.
Thanks, Tanya.
Tania and Gail.
Thank you, Chair. Well, myself probably deal with the financials. If Gail might like to start with the Chair's report and performance report, if there's any questions on this area. Perhaps lead through page by page. Can we take questions on the first section? And
Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't too worried about the numbers as such. I thought we had a bigger surplus, but I was more interested if it's appropriate to the Chief Executive and Chairman's report. The language in there, I'm just not too sure we've actually got that right yet. But we sort of mentioned the right things, but if the conversation's going forward, I'm sort of wondering whether we're not clear enough there for us to have the next conversation. Because people will go back to this and say, well, you actually told us everything was okay and you used your balance sheet. In actual fact, there was a strength of our balance sheet that gave us the ability to actually get through the last year. But looking forward, we're actually in a weaker position, in my view. And we've lost some income streams. We've had some real big hits coming at us. So we managed last year okay, but going forward, we're actually in a weaker position. And I'm not too sure, Chair, if we've actually picked up the theme of that as we go into the next part. And I know you've rewritten it twice as staff. I'm just not too sure whether it's quite right. So I just want to hear the council view on that. Thanks.
Do you want to respond to that, or we go around?
Let's hear the question. Let's hear the councillors.
Bruce?
Thank you. I'm just a wee bit fresh to the report, I must confess, but actually you've triggered a thought in my mind, Lloyd, that actually I look for 3 things out of an annual report. The third thing is that it sets us up well for the coming year, or 2 or 3, whatever it can be. And I wonder how well we play it. I'm just looking at the Chairman's report. We basically say we're well placed to respond. I don't disagree with that necessarily, Rob, but I am hearing some scary stories from our regional colleagues. Further north, I was with one yesterday, and they're saying 20+% rate increase next year to deal with the freshwater impacts. Is their first cut now? I know we may well be past first cuts, many of them, but we're painting a very positive picture here. I'm not wanting to say that we shouldn't be positive, but I'm just reflecting, have we got it right when we think about what the headwinds are in front of us, which I think is backing up your point.
Same.
So for me, it's a question of, it's not saying that we've got it wrong, but it's a question of we don't want to set ourselves up for a fall, basically.
Chairman Horrell?
Just following on from that and reflecting on it last night, I know I'd sort of ticked it off, but the third last paragraph, we talk about the Central Freshwater Package regulations are comprehensive and complex. And I wonder whether we should have put something in there about it will require significant fiscal funding because I think we should be signalling with that, because that, the impact of those regulations are going to be significant, and we're not really signalling that at the moment. I know this report tends to be looking back, but that bit is looking forward a wee bit, and I think it would be good to strengthen that a wee bit. And even that last thing about achieving both will be a challenge, but it is possible, and it's just semantics, but maybe working together was fitted into the word too. Just,
Any other comments on that section? My 2 cents worth, I think, is that we've talked about being frank and honest and not sugarcoating anything, so I agree with Bruce entirely that we need to be honest so that anything that's coming doesn't blindside anybody that's not privy to some of the other conversations. Is there
Instruction from the council then would be to alter the,
how do we all feel about making that more of a?
Chair, can I suggest a couple of things?
Yep, please do.
As a straw man, if you like, or a straw woman.
Straw person.
Straw person. So we added something in there in that 1, 2, 3 from the top around regulations are complex. We add in there a phrase, and we'll need significant investment from the region to deal with these, or words to that effect. We chuck that, we add that clause in. And the one above there around is well placed to respond to the freshwater regulations, but will still require further, to the investments here. But even though we're well placed, we're ahead of the game, but it's still going to be challenging for us. So add in there something into that paragraph there around challenging. Maybe second last paragraph, if we chuck in another small paragraph around the points I think that Councillor Cullen talked about. We've been a challenging year. We've used our balance sheet. We've had a bigger focus on financial strategy. It's going to be, we're going to need ongoing focus on our expenditure and looking at how do we make the investments we need to make to deal with our future challenges. We'll tidy those words up, but is that the sort of thing that we're looking for?
Councillor McCallum.
Thank you. I think so. I think, to me, we need to clearly state, I think, my computer's died, so I can't go into it. There's something in here about we've had a major flood, and that's taken some reserves away to challenge us. We've had some Waituna commitment that's been sitting there. We've got freshwater stuff. We've got a plan sitting in the Environment Court that we're not 100% sure how that's going to work out and come through. And we've got release of an NPS and an NES that has its own life expenditure as well. And I'm not sure if we're because I'm sort of thinking about the reader. In those first 2 or 3 paragraphs, the reader, and let's say the reader is the government or somebody that's looking and trying to get picking up Bruce's point, a number of councils are challenging the same thing, and they're all telling me the same message. They can do business as usual, but there's a number of things coming through that are really, they've used up, and that's what we want to say in here. We've used up a lot of the reserves that we have had, a lot of the movement, and now as we go forward, it's going to be a bigger challenge because we've lost some income streams. And we've got some other challenges through COVID-19, which has, changed the world completely. So I think we just need to reinforce those key pillars. And I think we need to be in the first, if you don't get the key message in the first third part of that report, I don't think the people are going to read it in the second last paragraph. So I'm sorry, I'm quite high level, but I think from my point of view, if I've got the key message in those first 2 or 3, 4 paragraphs, then I can look and press the document and say, yes, I can see what they've done, I see what they've managed. When I read it, I thought, I'm just not quite sure if we've got the right tone in there because we haven't fully gone through the LTP stuff yet. But I think we're going to be similar to other councils, which a big challenge ahead of us. So we need to relay that in some respects as well.
Rob?
Yes, so I think what I'm picking up is, Bruce Robertson's comments around setting ourselves up in terms of the future, reporting on the past, but actually setting the scene for the future. And I think if we added in those comments along the lines you're talking about, Councillor, around impact on revenue, bigger focus on financial strategy, and we've got a need for significant investment going forward to respond to the government's direction and to do the work we need to do. So, again, a bit high level, but
That's the tone I was trying to get across.
if we capture those points so that anyone reading this can see, okay, yeah, the council got through actually some big challenges. Well placed actually, but there's going to be significant investment needed, and it's going to be we're going to have to focus on, how do we meet those challenges? Some words by enough by
Gail, thanks.
So, through you, Chair, I guess I just want to acknowledge you've picked up all the individual comments that you're making, and also the broader comment about the tone. And so I think that will require a few changes, but I'm pretty sure I completely get where you're coming from.
Thanks, Gail. Councillor Beard?
Yeah, just, when we go into the report a little further, we look at what we've achieved, what we haven't achieved, what wasn't applicable. There's quite a lot of things that we haven't achieved, and I know that the year hasn't been the best years on record as far as getting things done, but I know we've not want to sort of focus too much on the negative, but have we not recognised enough in that open statement some of the things that we haven't got done? The second paragraph on page 2 for this year, while some aspects of the programme were delayed, we broke new ground. That's really the only point where we start to reference some of the things that are coming next as far as what was achieved, what wasn't achieved. And so have we been a little bit, well, not perhaps reflecting as a result enough. We did well financially in the sense that we broke even. We thought we were going to be in the gun for a big loss, and we broke even, which is credible. But we haven't achieved quite a lot of things that in previous years we might have achieved or looked to have achieved. So have we been a little bit generous to ourselves and not reflecting on that?
I think we've got to amend that paragraph. Despite the challenging circumstances, we could reflect it in there that actually what's up with challenging circumstances, and while we did deliver on some of our priorities, we didn't achieve all of what we set to go. So I think we could reference it in there. And that's probably an optimistic paragraph looking at it now.
Councillor Cook?
I'm just saying that and Lloyd about the mood, I suppose, of this piece of paper. The people casually reading our report will go straight to the summary and they will get an impression within the first few paragraphs of how good we are or not good. I would be really concerned if we painted too much of a negative picture, because I don't think we need to. I think the council actually has performed really well over the period. We've been affected by 2 crises, and those are not excuses, they're reasons why we haven't achieved some of the stuff. And I think we should say that out loud, but I think we should actually be quite pleased with the results that we've achieved. Considering we've just been through 2 crises, which have been, the COVID one was quite a long one, which really interfered with our work and our performance. So I'm more inclined to paint the rosy picture, but an honest, as the chair says, an honest and open one. But I would be positive, rather than taking negativity out of it. We can just being truthful without being negative.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on? Thanks, Councillor McPhail.
I'm just trying to listen and understand. I'm just looking at the chairman report. I don't know why I'm thinking this, but just in regards, I don't know if you need to make a comment that you want to work with the government. We're trying to work with the government. Like there's a wee bit out there. People are wanting to as a council, we accept that we want to work. Well, I'm talking about the government who are reading this, because we not just give them a pat on the back, but it's actually just that communication that we want to work with the community to achieve these. We want to work with the government, accept that is we want to, and I don't know, because I know there's going to be some pretty negative stuff out there, and there's about attacking the government. And I want to be on the side that, hey, we want the door open, we want to be in this room, and we're going to work through this in the future. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there.
That's a good point.
It's it's a bit like saying, hey, yeah, I'm just saying that. I'm sort of trying to speak to the government. I'm getting annoyed with all the other stuff out there, and we've got to make a decision. We're in the room, we're talking, we're getting on all right. So, I don't know how that.
So, meeting feel, well, I see lots of nodding with that comment, councillor. Chairman Horrell?
Yes, I don't disagree with anything there, but I guess these reports mainly are looking back on the year we've just finished, but often in reports you also do give a bit into the future, and I think that's the flavour we've actually got around the room, and I think Gail will pick up on some of those points.
Thanks, everybody. Does everybody feel they've had their say in that section?
Can I just, very briefly, it's not quite wordsmithing, but we're going to have a new front cover. We're not using the same picture with a different year date. Or are we? Because we used that same picture last year.
Okay.
So what we've done with the pictures generally is we start them on an LTP and they see that LTP through for 3 years. You tend to get the same picture with different colour things to differentiate.
So the answer, yes, you are like to use
So
that.
the answer is yes for this one.
Whose kids are
We're
they?
doing it differently for the next one. How's that?
They're a bit older now.
They have aged, unlike the Simpsons. It's not the Simpsons that do actually grow old.
Gradually age during the 3 years.
Chair, I'm happy to move the report. I'm just looking at the 3 recommendations. I think without being specific, we've picked up the tone and maybe all 3 can go together.
So the recommendations are request any changes it considers are required to either document, request the provision of any additional information it requires, and forward the draft for adoption at the next council meeting. I'm not sure we're at that point yet, are we?
Yeah. I've got one more question about the numbers. We talk about the numbers at all.
Yeah, so we might,
So I think the plan is, sorry Chair, I think the plan is to sort of work through section by section and get your feedback. And then once it's gone through and bearing in mind, we've got 2 reports ahead of us. We've got the annual report and we have the summary document. So the intention is to work through the annual report section by section, complete that, reflect anything that might be different in the summary document, reflect that, and then go to the recommendations.
okay, we all clear on that? Great, so the next section in your mind, Tanya, Gail.
Opportunities, get clicking off page 5, I guess.
Yep, so we're on page 5, the opportunities for Māori to contribute to decision making. The thoughts don't say there's a comma missing. You know I will do that for you some other time.
Most likely to.
Any comments on that pages 5 and 6 particularly? Moving over then to page 7, the year in review.
Do we need to put any comment there on the slight change in harmony in Te Marama, or is it not our place to put that Hokanui is not quite on the fold in as much as they were? Is it relevant or not so relevant?
Probably not.
But thank you for raising it.
I did look at that lately, the approval with, like, they haven't been filled, but do we just leave it, it's I guess we have done the approval and.
Yeah. Okay, so 5 and 6 done. 7, year in review, lots of numbers. Numbers, people. Great. Activities in depth. So 8 and 9 are kind of introductions to that Luke, anything? I know you've all read it from cover to cover, so we'll zoom along. Regional leadership. Flicking it over then, that covers off 10, 11, and 12. Right, and 13, sorry. Any comments there? Great. Number 2, environmental stewardship. Question from me very quickly is, do we have a Māori term for that? And the,
I'm not sure, so, I mean, like,
that we would put beside as a dual bilingual header. Because the regional leadership, all of us could perhaps have a, do we have bilingual?
If you would like that, we can do that. I mean, Kaitiaki is
It's the feeling of the meeting, do you feel that,
Consistency is important and
well, it's a partnership after all? Okay, so we'll charge you with getting that sorted, thank you. So back to the substance of that section, the leadership, anything? Sorry, environmental stewardship. Thank you, that covers off quite a lot of measures and results, or lack thereof. Great. Number 3, whakahoka te mana, anything? That's pages 21, 22, 23 and 24. Number 4, community resilience. 26, 27, 28, 29. Page 30. Finances. So,
Is there anything you want to say on the finances before we go through the page turning count?
yep, thanks Tony. That was my next question. Neil beat me to it. I'll kick him under the table
You
later.
do such a fantastic job.
Thanks Tony.
Thank you, Chair, yes. So page 31, Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenses. We brought to the bottom line a surplus of $5,000, just above the zero. The draft that we presented, I think in August, end of August, perhaps a very early draft, suggested a surplus of 400,000. It's a very brave thing to go out with a forecast prior to going into audit. However, I think I've always had an underline that says plus or minus a little bit. So with end of year adjustments, 2 parts to that. There was some things that came in at the end of the financial year regarding a large court case across there that we brought in, and several other just end of year accounting adjustments that reduced that down to the 5. So it wasn't anything untowards, but it was information we weren't aware of at the time of going out with the draft. We have in here some, there's a couple of extra notes this year around the fact that we earned grant income from the government, from MFE, of $5 million and subsequently spent that, and you might see there's an additional note reflecting that. That was the grant with MFE for our Whakamanatewa Tuna project. So some of the numbers look a little bit enlarged. It's a one-off transaction in and out. In the balance sheet, page 32, again, some numbers a bit larger this year. Oh, sorry, I might reflect also insurance income of $2 million received from cost recoveries from NEMA and Aon Insurance as a result of the floods. So altogether, 2 extraordinary items for the year. The balance sheet reflects some of that as well. Note number 6, trade and other receivables, up substantially, 5.9 million versus 2 to 3 million in previous years. That reflects a lot of the fact that we weren't actually paid those insurances on cost recoveries at balance date. It is a long process. Bank overdraft, we ended up at $1.6 million OD. We had managed the previous year to just squeak in around the 142,000, so slightly down, but very traditionally sitting at the end of the financial year. No other things to note on the balance sheet. Statement of cash flows, page 33. Receipts from customers and payments to suppliers, again, both substantially above average due to those one-off income streams. And cash provided from managed funds, it shows here our drawdown of $7 million, $7 million during the year to fund our net cash deficit, our normal operating deficit there. I think, and after that, Chair, we head into all the various notes, Council. Perhaps we could take questions on the statements if there are any.
Councillor Isler?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering about that $5 million from the government, so it's come in, it's gone out. Whether it's received, is it being put in separate?
Sorry, Councillor, it was part of the Whakamanati Waituna project, so it was granted to a trust, charitable trust, to buy land as part of the project. So they concluded that transaction, the last of those transactions in June.
Any other questions for the team?
On page 52, I was just querying the GST receivable on note 6. At 1.179 million against last year at 536,000. That's quite a significant increase for a period of time. You're looking for a cheque from them rather than actually owing them money, which suggests, are we on a monthly invoice basis, or how are we?
Yes.
Which does suggest that we had no income largely and lots of expense in that particular month. And I just was a little bit, well, maybe ask for an explanation as to what were the contributing factors to why we had such a big expectation or GST receipt sitting there.
The transaction that I was referring to is the regarding the land transfer to the charitable trust. We paid that invoice, well, we had that invoice in June, which was owing to be paid. So we were on paying the grant from MFE. So we received the money from MFE in the prior month. We unpaid it. We owed them that money, and that was our claim GST amount at that time.
Okay, so it relates more of a capital movement than an actual than trading.
It was a contract of service. We had to pay this invoice. Yeah. It was a $5 million invoice.
But it is one of those sort of one-off transactions, it's not an ongoing transaction.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, what was business as usual for June that required us to have such a large GST liability or asset?
Yeah. Not business as usual, one-off situation.
Any other questions in that section? That's not Kyle.
Just in regards to property and the rental land, I'm just having a look at the value of the rental land. Is there any benefit in actually having that as the real value? So like you've got it at a cost of, I think it's 4 million, is that right? Roughly. I mean, just in the future, if we were going to leverage assets and things and actually having the real values of having some of these in the books to say, well, we do have these assets. I'm just thinking about it, we need that.
So
Or do we need to not worry about it? No.
the one comment I'd make, the general principle that we have in our books are if we're holding the asset for other purposes, then we've got it at cost. And so that applies in the same regard to Southport. Our rationale for holding that is more around protecting a significant strategic asset for the region. And the leased land, our reason for holding that is for flood protection. So so we're not treating it as an investment. So if you did revalue it, then every year you're having to go in and you're having to restate those values year after year after year. So you do create a little bit of a rod for your back, and obviously Mike's back there, he might want to comment later on as well, but you do have to continue to revalue them to make sure that they are consistent to the market and appropriate. So, we could take an alternate approach, but you'd probably want to be consistent on that approach and do the same with Southport. But I think our principle is they're not there as an investment; they're there for other purposes.
I suppose from our point of view, when we're looking at our leases and redesigning leases, that we're looking more as a commercial basis on the lease agreements, that we're maybe changing that attitude towards that. I'm just throwing it there that we have more focused on it.
Yeah, and look, and I would agree. Obviously, what we're doing with the actual rental is getting maximising that market rental with consideration for the other, the challenges of the land. For me, the value wouldn't take into consideration our book holding for that land when they're coming up with their valuation. So, we can treat these things slightly separately.
Next, I've got Chairman Horrell and then Councillor Beard.
Yeah, I think for the book, the basis of bookkeeping, it's actually better to keep them at that standard thing. Otherwise, you get all these fluctuations. But on the other side, it's a bit like Southport. You also have to know what the value of the asset is. But I think the balance sheet's probably not the right place to do that. Otherwise, you're going to get wild fluctuations with changes in share prices or land prices, and it's not really adding value to the balance sheet, and just prompts a whole lot of questions from the public as, why has it gone up and down or whatever. So,
Thank you. Councillor Beard.
Just a question. On a few occasions, I guess the computation and the suitability of our debt provision. I know the note is quite large about what we provide and what we don't provide, but on trade receivables last year we were 2.2 or 2.3 million, and we had a 270,000 doubtful debt provision. Our receivables are now 2.6 million, and we dropped our allowance for doubtful debts to 220,000. So we've dropped our provision by 58,000, released it back to the P&L, and I know there's possibly the difference between having a $5,000 surplus and a $50,000 loss. I don't know whether that was engineered or it's particularly that you don't need 270,000.
Studious auditors if we were engineering anything.
But so you do feel that the 220,000 of doubtful debt provision is adequate on the 2.6 million of.
Do you want to comment, Tane?
Yes, Councillor, we actually go through our list of debtors individually and assess outstanding debt as to its current position. The reason it's changed this year is we had some success with a large debt last year that we had deemed potentially unrecoverable at balance date last year. I personally took that responsibility to ring and start making phone calls, and we managed to get an arrangement around that debt. So effectively that debt has been paid and it is now deemed to be recoverable, and that was the difference. It was an $88,000 debt. So every other debt we assess individually and on its merits, and if we think it's not recoverable, then we'll put it as a provision for doubtful debts. Otherwise, we have a bigger problem. The rates debts are recoverable up to 6 years, and we have a fairly sturdy law behind us enabling us to progress with rates debts. So we only provision things past the 6 years. And that's our methodology.
That's standard practice within councils.
Any other questions? Are you happy with that, Tony? Yep.
Did you want to go through the notes? So there is a slight addition to the notes or a change to the notes.
Which was a note amendment, page 71. Apologies, it was in a change made subsequent to the first report going out. It's an update on a practice that we had in the past in disclosing the banding of staff salaries. We were asked to change that to reflect the change in that banding, which we've done. And other than that, I think, unless you've got any other notes or questions on the notes, that would be that part of the document, Chair.
Thank you. Can't see anybody busting to have a
Sorry,
further
just,
say.
one thing, because I'm sure Michael referred to this, we should just be cognizant of the meeting of the note on COVID, which is an important one and virtually required on us this year. Looks pretty good to me, but I think we should, as a committee, just note that that's it's an oddity, but it's one that's been forced on us this year for all the obvious and apparent reasons.
Page 81.
Sorry, just flicking pages. Any further questions on the notes? Thanks for pointing that out, Bruce.
The only thing I'd add there, possibly under that COVID one, is I think the tail of COVID may be around us longer. So it's not just dealt with. So maybe we just want to pick up in here that I think this thing will probably have a longer tail effect into our financial management, really.
I guess we take that to lead into our planning is operating with an expectation that it has a longer impact. So again, we're sort of risk averse or
Yeah, but I think in reality is I can't guarantee looking at the world that we're not going to go back into lockdowns in New Zealand. We're strong at the border, but you know we've seen escalation that's quite alarming. I'm sure. There's quite a media around where it is, where it isn't. So we're seeing a different domestic travel cycle. New Zealand's routines are different. I just have a feeling that this is going to be around us a little bit longer. And I think we're still feeling the impact of that even now from the 4 weeks in March. We don't necessarily see it as fully tangible, but indirectly there is that process in there, and we can talk about it. There's another part I want to talk about later, a different section of the meeting that I think is it will impact on us going forward. So I think this to me is like we cope, but looking forward, we're still going to be dealing with this going forward. We need to be aware of that. And that's in part of our assumptions and our planning and our management as well. So, because I see this as sending a message, and that message is we understand our business and we are going to take that forward. We've had some learnings. You know, to shut yourself down for 4 weeks and go to off-site management is no easy feat. So we're better prepared going forward in the future. I think there's a little bit of that.
Yep.
That's a personal view.
Bruce?
Lloyd, I just wonder, because the important assumption there is actually at the bottom of page 81, which is that we are effectively concluding that, well, I mean, we say at the at the top of page 81 that we have there is potentially ongoing concerns. The critical thing that we are essentially representing to our community is that we think we've got all short-term effects covered. We'll use it. We're saying we will use debt. I think that's again an important thing for us around the table to reflect on. We are saying we think we can manage the future. Well, we say we're cautiously optimistic that we can handle business as usual, and we're saying if the untoward happens, we will use our debt. That's actually quite a significant statement, which again, I think it's probably been well traversed around the table, but we are going to be stating it publicly in this report. I think we need to think about that. Or just reaffirm.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Are we looking to change this note, or are we happy enough with it?
No, I think you're okay with that, are
I
you?
think the point's made, I think Bruce is happy that those comments are picked up there. So.
He's not recommending a change, so I think if we were to change it, it would be in the Nichols front forward piece. I think we had enough chat on that, so this looks pretty good to me.
Thanks.
Tanya? So the last section, page 84, local government financial reporting and prudence regulations require us to disclose a number 7 very important benchmarks displayed by way of graph, designed by the Department of General Affairs to help the reader. The first one is rates affordability, and I think the graphs are reasonably self-evident. Green being actual in these graphs and black being the benchmarks that we've set in our TP. So that's rates affordability. Number 2, debt affordability is sitting in black because we have no debt. The maximum is 100,000 under our current policy. Hence, that graph is sitting as it is. 3, balanced budget benchmark. You can see we just hit exactly 100% with a balanced budget without engineering.
Good.
It was a pleasant surprise to me. I get to see the numbers when they fall out the end. 4, sorry.
Claim it.
If it was slightly under, we'd put the cap around just to get over it.
Essential services benchmark, and 5, debt servicing benchmark. Again, these graphs would have been 0, and we're able to reflect that statement without the graph. Again, we have no debt. Number 6, debt control benchmark. This is more around current debt, not just long-term debt, and the movement during the year against planned. We're just sitting above that 100% there. Operations control benchmark is more of a cash flow, signifying that we did have negative cash flow for the year. Whereas in the past we just squeaked in. I think we're well aware that our operating situation is a deficit and our cash flow comes from other sources. We are just aiming to be a little bit more self-reliant, or needing to be more self-reliant in that area. Are there any? And then the last section is collaboration across council. So are there any questions, Chair, on the graphs?
Bruce?
Just one, in one sense it's correct, but equally I wonder whether we need to have the sentence under the essential services benchmark, Tanya. Are we explaining why there's no graph, which is there's no depreciation, therefore it's hard to have a graph. But when we say in the final sentence, the council's capital expenditure will always be equal to or greater than the depreciation expense. Now, we don't have a depreciation expense. So we need to have that last sentence in effect.
Check with our auditors.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but it feels like we're trying to have it both ways. I would, if we were to have a sentence, I'd rather be comfortable that we would say something effective. You know, we have a maintenance or management program which keeps our flood protection control works capable, really, you know, because just saying that actually, as I say, it will always be equal or greater than the depreciation expense doesn't quite make sense with the previous. Yes, Mike will be finalising it, I'm sure. I think it's a great sentence to have.
Thank you.
Chairman Horrell?
Just actually going backwards a little bit and picking up on Bruce's comment about the Chairman and CEO's report, looking at that page 81 where we talk about the reduction in the cruise ship at 2.8 million. I'm just wondering whether that should actually be reflected in that commentary, because we actually don't mention that at the moment, and that's a significant factor going into the next couple of years as to when and at what level that will recover, because a lot of that stuff we're going to have to find from elsewhere, so.
So you're suggesting you reflect that in your
Well, I think that is, looking at that, those first couple of pages, we don't actually mention that, and I think it is significant.
If we say income has been impaired or affected, but without being prescriptive, and I think it may be being prescriptive,
So
so
we
highlights
can
the
see examples.
significance.
Yeah, agree. That's a good point.
Great. Right, that takes us back to the end of the reporting and prudence section. Anything else, Tanya?
Some commentary there on collaboration, Chair, and that's the end of the document.
Any questions on the collaboration across the council section?
You see a conversation earlier, the shared services has sort of gone into dormancy at the moment, and with what's coming forward, it's possibly an area that should be on the mayoral forum agenda to actually say, should we actually be reactivating it?
Certainly scope to get that shared services space more active, I think. Any other comments there? Great. So, does that take us back to those recommendations? You want to do that first?
Summary of that.
Sorry. So moving on to the summary then, so that we do all of that off at once. Assuming then that the changes we've already discussed will be transferred. We don't need to re-discuss them. Thank you. Tanya, do you want to take us through the summary? Gail, somebody? No?
I'd like to suggest that it's a very public-facing document. It's the one that if anybody's going to read anything, this will be it, available in short form. There's probably not much else to say about it. It's produced, what we need to produce to convey what has happened.
Any other comments or questions on the summary? Excellent. Welcome, Councillor Stevens. Feel free to join us. Right, so that does take us to the recommendations. Just a reminder of what they are. Request any changes, which we've done, and we've started across those. Request the provision of any additional information. Don't think we needed any more. And forward the draft annual report and summary to council for adoption at its meeting on the 26th of November 2020, subject to any final changes required to either document by the council and or the audit team. Councillor McCallum, are you still moving those three recommendations? Thank you. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other questions or discussion on that? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Well done, everybody. That's a big tick. And a big event on a strange and miraculous year. So, well done, team. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. I was just checking the time, seeing if everybody needed a cuppa, but do you want to move through and get that other bit done? Yes, because Mike's here. So,